My grandmother was critically ill, and in the entire city, the only person who could perform her surgery was my boyfriend, Daniel Carter. I begged him for 27 days. Finally, he said my grandmother was scheduled for surgery, it could proceed. But when the day came, and she was lying on the operating table, prepped and waiting, he never showed up. That night, I saw Jenny, Daniel's childhood sweetheart, post a photo on Weibo after her cosmetic surgery. Thank God Daniel was here. Scheduled a month ago, but I got in 3 days early. It was only then that I realized, on the very first day I begged Daniel for help, he had already agreed to fly to South Korea for her plastic surgery. My phone rang. On WeChat, he casually said the surgery would be delayed 3 days. He'd personally perform it then. Emily, baby, be understanding. I promised Jenny. I can't break my word. Just 3 more days. Her eyes should stop swelling by then. 3 days later, when Daniel went to check the schedule to prep for my grandmother's surgery, he found out she had already passed away. Nurses rushed into the room, panicked. My grandmother lay there, frail and thin. Tubes stuck all over her body. No matter how they called her name or used the defibrillator, she wouldn't wake up. But she still had a chance to live. I had been pleading with Daniel for 27 days. The first time, he said he couldn't prioritize her, there were other patients waiting too. The second time, he claimed he had an academic conference. By the 26th time, it was a scheduling conflict. I waited in pain for 27 days. My grandmother's condition worsened every day, and Daniel never visited her once. If it weren't for Jenny's post on Weibo, I might have still been waiting blindly in the hospital. I had tried to justify everything for him, to make excuses, but I never expected my grandmother's life to rank below Jenny's eyelid surgery. The cruelest part? The day before he left for Korea, Daniel even reminded me to take good care of Grandma and not to worry. I kept thinking he was just busy. I should be understanding. But when the doctor announced the time of death, and I saw Grandma couldn't be saved, I collapsed beside her bed, crying until I couldn't stand. Then the phone rang. It was Daniel. Keep an eye on her condition these next few days, he said gently. Don't suggest anything new, avoid infection. I'll do the surgery in 3 days. Hearing that concerned voice through the phone, my hands trembled so hard I couldn't even hold it steady. She was gone. The only person I had left in this world was gone. And now, Daniel Carter's words, what use were they? Miss Emily, the funeral home staff has arrived, a nurse gently reminded me. The funeral home. Emily, where are you? Daniel's anxious voice came through the phone. At the hospital. There was a pause. Don't worry, he said, I'll head over now to check on your grandma's condition. The call ended. People pass away at the hospital often. It wasn't surprising to see funeral staff on site. I figured Daniel must have thought the same. My mind blank, I stood up and followed the funeral home staff to help arrange things for Grandma. Just after they took her body away, Daniel sent another message. Emily, Jenny was worried her eyes would swell too much, so I ran out to get ice for her. Next time, okay? Next time I'll be at the hospital with you and Grandma. I stared at that message, stunned. Since college, Daniel had always told me. Next time. Next time he'd come home with me to visit Grandma. Next time we'd spend Christmas together. Next time we'd go pick out engagement rings. Daniel knew I wasn't the type to cry or make a scene. That's why I was always placed last. Always asked to wait. But not this time. Grandma was gone. And I would never forgive him again. I followed the hearse to the funeral home and kept vigil for her that night. Daniel messaged and called me nonstop, all night long. I didn't open a single text. I didn't answer once. After the funeral, I put Grandma's house up for sale. I couldn't stay in this city anymore. Every street, every building, too many memories of her and me. I planned to quit my job, but my boss, recognizing my capability, offered me a transfer to our North Bay branch. My closest coworkers encouraged the change. The regional manager said, "Go to the Northeast. People there will help heal your pain." Besides Daniel, I had no one left in this city. Even if I vanished, no one would notice. Right as I was leaving the office with my things packed up after finalizing the transfer, Daniel appeared. "Emily," he said, stubbing out his cigarette and stepping forward to grab my box. I glanced sideways, furrowed my brows, and sidestepped him. He rushed after me. "Why haven't you replied to my messages?" I stepped aside again. He grabbed my arm. "What's wrong? Are you mad?" he asked. "You're grown now, don't be petty over Jenny like this." I promised her I couldn't break that. "You know I'm a man of my word." His tone was soft, almost coaxing. I tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. "Don't act like a child, okay? You know I don't like that." His expression darkened. "I just got off the plane and came straight to find you. What more do you want from me? I'll arrange the surgery for your grandma the day after tomorrow, okay?" My tears finally burst free. I shoved his hand away and screamed. "I don't need you anymore. I won't need you ever again. My grandma is dead. She's really gone." Daniel Carter froze, his expression darkening. "Emily," he said, "Jenny's getting her stitches removed in 2 days. After that, I'll perform the surgery for your grandma. Don't say you don't need me over something this small, it could affect your grandma's health." I stared at him in stunned silence. He still thought I was just throwing a tantrum because I was jealous of Jenny? Daniel scratched his head in frustration and turned away. All right. I know your grandma means the world to you. I promise, the day after tomorrow I'll do the surgery, okay? You just don't understand me. I've been working non-stop." I looked at the man standing in front of me, and felt like I didn't know him at all. He was about to say more when his phone buzzed. A new message. He glanced at the screen. His face instantly changed, panic written all over it. "Go home first, I've got something to deal with." And just like that, he turned, got in his car, and drove off. I knew it was a message from Jenny. But at this point, I didn't care anymore. I had to take this chance, while he was still out, to pack my things and leave this city. I walked home, numb and hollow inside. But the moment I opened the door, I noticed something was missing, my bunny slippers. "Daniel, come try what I cooked." Jenny came rushing out of the kitchen, but stopped in her tracks when she saw me. She was wearing my bunny slippers, my apron, and holding my spoon. "Oh, it's you," she said with a smug smile. "Surprised?" "One phone call," she added, "and Daniel came right to me." "So what if your grandma was waiting for surgery?" In the end, he still flew to Korea with me to get my eyelids done. In his heart, "You're not as important as you think you are." I clenched my fists, shaking with anger as I stared at her smug little face, swollen eyelids, and all. She was old anyway, Jenny continued with a sneer. Did Daniel really need to be the one to operate? Just then, the door swung open. Daniel stepped inside. Jenny let out a scream and threw herself to the floor. The door was still wide open. Daniel could see me on top of Jenny, slapping her face over and over. "Emily, what are you doing?" he yelled, rushing over to yank me off her and shoving me hard to the side. I slammed into the corner of the kitchen counter. Pain shot through my back like I couldn't even breathe. Jenny threw herself into Daniel's arms, sobbing dramatically. I only wore her bunny slippers, and she got so mad, she called me shameless, said I killed her grandma. I told her I didn't, but she hit me anyway. Daniel whipped around and glared at me with fury in his eyes. I stood there, stunned. I had never seen Daniel Carter show such cruelty in his eyes. As if the one I slapped wasn't Jenny, but the person he cherished most in the world. "Emily, you've really gone too far." His icy voice stabbed straight through my chest like a knife. Trembling, I watched him toss my bunny slippers aside, then carry Jenny out of the room. As he passed me, he said coldly, "I've reconsidered. Your grandma's surgery. I might have to think it over. The door slammed shut. My knees gave out, and I collapsed to the floor. Daniel Carter was using my grandmother's surgery to threaten me? To force me to apologize to Jenny? If Grandma were still alive, I couldn't imagine how panicked and hopeless I would have felt. He had stepped all over my dignity, and the bond between him and my grandma, just to protect his precious childhood sweetheart. I don't know how long I sat there before I finally started gathering my things with shaky hands. We'd been together since high school. During the 4 years of college apart, I still found my way to this city just to be with him. Now, almost 30, I knew how hard it had been to build everything I had here. Every little memory reminded me of how deeply we had once loved each other. Daniel once promised he would become the best surgeon in the country to protect me and my grandma. But somewhere along the way, he changed. I only packed a few clothes and books. The rest, I set aside to throw away. Suddenly, the door opened. Daniel stepped in. Seeing me kneeling on the floor, packing my things, he froze. Jenny tore her ear, her eyelid stitches popped. I had to calm her down or she would have called the police. He sighed and reached out to hold me. Emily, how did you become like this? I ignored him and continued packing. Daniel turned me around. I know you're upset about your grandma. But I swear, just one more day. I've already informed the hospital I'll return the day after tomorrow. This time, I mean it. After the surgery, she can even attend our wedding. As he reached to hold me again, I lifted the storage box in my hands to block him. All right. Got it. I'm just stepping out to take the trash. I picked up the box and walked straight past him, not even glancing at the forced smile fading from his face. Maybe he finally noticed the coldness in my eyes and was about to say something. But just then, the door opened again. Jenny walked in, pouting, brushing past me to wrap her arms around Daniel. Daniel, she whined, I'm scared my wound might get infected. Can I sleep with you tonight? Daniel turned pale and hurriedly tried to explain himself. Emily, don't get the wrong idea. Jenny's physically weak. If she gets an infection, it could be serious. Let her stay just one night. Daniel Carter tried to reassure me. She'll sleep in your room. I'll take the couch, he added quickly, afraid I might misunderstand. Okay, I replied blandly, clutching my box and walking out. Emily, let's go visit your grandma together tomorrow. We'll complete the surgery paperwork. I said nothing. Daniel looked uneasy and was about to follow me, but Jenny tugged on his sleeve and demanded he disinfect her wounds. Later, as I took out the trash, I saw his office light still on. He was standing by the window, staring down. But I didn't care anymore. I had let everything go. The next morning, I took a taxi straight to the funeral home and scheduled the earliest cremation slot. As the flames roared inside the furnace, I still couldn't accept the reality. Grandma was gone. The cremation hall was crowded that day with many families. Since I made the appointment early, my grandmother was first in line. Silently, I collected her ashes, paid the fees, and was about to leave. When the hospital called, asking me to come back to sign off on a few final payment documents, I returned. While I was filling out the paperwork, Jenny walked in. Emily, you bitch, she snapped. You're using Daniel's money to pay for that old hag's funeral, huh? I gave her a cold glance, uninterested in arguing, and turned to leave. But she wouldn't stop. She grabbed my arm. Hey, you broke tramp, I'm talking to you. What's with that attitude? Shouldn't you be preparing your grandma's surgery right now? What are you even doing here? Then Daniel's voice cut through the air. Jenny, enough. I bit my lip, trying to hold back tears. My grandma, she's already gone. Jenny pulled Daniel's arm, outraged. Daniel. You haven't even married me yet, why is she using your money? I turned my back and walked away. I had never taken a single dollar from him. But at this point, it wasn't worth explaining. Daniel furrowed his brows and snapped at Jenny. Who gave you the right to talk to Emily like that? Jenny looked wounded. I'm just standing up for you. She's clearly after your money. Daniel slapped her. Shut up. Emily has never taken a dime from me. And we were going to get married, this has nothing to do with you. Jenny clutched her cheek, stunned. Dr. Carter, the oar is ready, a nurse reminded him gently. Daniel exhaled, took the surgery form, and signed it. Prepare patient in bed 8, Lan Hung Lee, liver cancer. Move her to operating room 3. Start prep now. I'll be in to perform the surgery. After saying that, Daniel Carter gave Jenny a sharp glare, then turned and walked away. The nurse, flipping through the surgery schedule, looked confused. But today's operation is for Linda Lewis, 45 years old, scheduled for a mastectomy, she murmured. Dr. Carter just mentioned a 60-year-old woman. That would be Lan Hung Lee, patient in bed 8, with liver cancer. She flipped through the file again. But, she suffered acute complications 2 days ago. She's already passed away. Daniel stepped out of his office, his mind clouded with unease as he recalled the look on my face when I left. He pulled out his phone and started texting. Emily, your grandma's surgery is about to start. Where are you? Come by the operating room, I need to go over a few details with you. Don't worry, I promise I'll do everything I can for her. 10 minutes later, Daniel stood outside the operating room doors, watching as nurses wheeled a patient past him. My plane touched down in a northern city I had never set foot in before. There was no Daniel Carter here. No Jenny. No more living in fear of emergency calls from the hospital. No more waiting in anxiety. Out the taxi window, I saw wide roads and towering buildings lined up in order. A new world. Suddenly, I remembered the passionate glow in Daniel's eyes when he first got into med school. Back then, he held my hand tightly and said, Emily, I'll become the best doctor in the country. I'll be your rock. Just wait, I'll take care of your grandma and help her live a long life. When I turned my phone back on after the flight, there were over 10 unread messages. The most recent one had been sent just 3 minutes ago. Emily, what are you trying to do? I stared at the words and let out a quiet, lonely laugh. What was I trying to do? How ironic. Even now, Daniel still believed I was the one who wronged him. Still questioning my intentions. I had begged him to operate on Grandma. He told me to wait in line. And I did. I swallowed my pride and waited. But was Jenny's eyelid surgery really that important? Was it so vital that it had to come before a woman's life? If Jenny didn't get her double eyelids done that day, would she have died? I didn't have the strength, or the will, to argue with Daniel Carter anymore. Truthfully, I didn't even want to see him again. Looking at his message, memories came rushing back. Our first argument. Our schedules getting too packed to see each other. Stress from school and deadlines. Our long nights of studying during senior year. And that moment, when Daniel first confessed to me. Over 10 years of youth. And it had all turned to ashes. Miss, we're here. The voice of the taxi driver brought me back. He was a broad-shouldered middle-aged man with a warm smile. I looked out at the hotel. I had arrived. And suddenly, it hit me. For all those years with Daniel Carter, I had always compromised. I even gave up the university I truly loved. Just to study in the same city as him. Because of him, I left my hometown of Peacefield to struggle in a big city. Because of him, I didn't return home to visit my grandmother for years. Only when she got sick did I bring her to live with me. And all those years of love, of sacrifice, still couldn't compare to Jenny's eyelids. I once believed that time would make us mature. That growing distant was just part of adulthood. I once thought his career mattered more than I did, so I tolerated everything. I once believed that our love would have a happy ending. But thinking back, he was always the one letting go. Always choosing someone else. I was always the one chasing after him. And he, not once, chose me. I suddenly remembered what my grandma said during her final days. Daniel Carter has big ambitions, but one day, he'll realize you're the best thing in his life. Tears fell onto my phone screen. Grandma, I can't wait for that day anymore. Daniel Carter never truly saw me. I was never his first choice. My phone vibrated, it was an unknown number. I turned it off in silence and blocked it without hesitation. At last, I had truly let go of everything. The stubborn attachment, the self-deception, the person who never looked back at me. I had finally released it all. In front of the company building, Daniel Carter stood like a man out of place. All of Emily's belongings were gone. There wasn't a single trace of her left. When she said she was leaving, she meant it. Daniel went to her office, only to be informed she had already quit. Her colleagues looked at him coldly, as if he had committed an unforgivable crime. His phone rang. It was Jenny. Daniel. I feel dizzy. Do you think I have a concussion? Her voice was soft and pitiful. Daniel frowned. Jenny, a concussion falls under neurology. I'm in general surgery. I promised Aunt Chu I'd take care of you. But you have to be able to take care of yourself too. Daniel was starting to lose his patience. He used to think of her as a delicate little girl. Her clinginess didn't bother him back then. But now she was calling every other hour, every single day. He had gone through so much just to get a moment of peace to look for Emily. And Jenny still wouldn't leave him alone. But Daniel, she whined, your girlfriend hit me. She should at least apologize. Enough, Daniel snapped. I saw the security footage. You called Emily's grandmother a rotten old hag who just won't die. Is that how you were raised? Daniel was furious. Everything had happened so fast that day, he was afraid Jenny was hurt and rushed her to the hospital. Only after Emily left did he finally check the camera footage and realize. Jenny had provoked Emily. Mocked her. Insulted her grandmother. She just lost her grandmother, of course she was angry. Who wouldn't be? Doesn't everyone have a grandmother? Is hers somehow more special? Jenny muttered under her breath. Daniel Carter furrowed his brows and hung up. I had already settled into my new place, just me, my phone, and the wide streets of this northern city. This place felt nothing like the stifling south. Here, the air was dry and crisp. The streets were crowded, but the people were calm and unhurried. In a roadside park, elderly folks danced to music, played instruments, and gathered around a small chessboard, watching each move with quiet intensity. I found a local real estate agency and managed to rent a cozy one-bedroom apartment in a mid-rise with an elevator. The neighborhood had lots of trees, their big leafy canopies casting shade along the paths. The landlord, a warm and cheerful middle-aged woman, beamed when she learned I'd moved here for work. This area isn't downtown, she said, but it's right next to the subway station, very convenient. There's a supermarket at the gate, and the building has secure entry. This is a perfect place for a young woman living alone. I glanced toward the courtyard, where a few old ladies were feeding stray cats. It reminded me of my grandmother. She used to scatter seeds to raise chickens in our small backyard. The memory rushed over me, and I couldn't hold back the tears. The landlady continued kindly, the furniture is all pretty new. About 80% condition. I'm moving to another state to take care of my granddaughter, so I'm renting it out. If anything breaks, just call me. I'll take care of everything. You don't have to worry. She patted my shoulder gently, her smile as warm as the first sun of spring. 3 days later, I officially reported for duty at my new branch office. Most of my coworkers had also moved here from neighboring cities, leaving their hometowns for job opportunities. At lunch, we chatted casually. Someone brought up this year's sci-fi short story contest. I'm serious, Emily, your writing on MBS is so rich. Why not enter the competition? It was team lead Nancy Jean who suggested it with a friendly smile. I froze for a second. Oh right, she added, you've been writing web novels for, what, 5 or 6 years now. You should give it a try. Others chimed in eagerly. Yeah. Totally. It's free to join, so why not? In that moment, I couldn't help but recall Daniel Carter's dismissive look every time he saw me writing online stories. That kind of thing has no value. Why are you so obsessed with it? Who says web novels aren't meaningful? Nancy Zhang scoffed. Emily, let me tell you something. Some men, especially those with that old-school mindset, they just look down on women. They think only the work they do is important. And everything women do is silly or worthless. I tightened my grip on my chopsticks, my heart filled with mixed emotions. And just like that, I realized I had grown too used to being belittled by Daniel Carter. To him, my college wasn't as good as his. My job wasn't worth comparing to his. Even my love for writing was something he considered cheap and meaningless. So many web novels have already been published and even adapted into TV series, said Nancy Zhang, turning to the rest of our team. They don't just hold commercial value. One day, this form of storytelling will be recognized in school textbooks as a legitimate literary genre. The internet is just a platform, she continued. It's no different from what publishing houses were hundreds of years ago. Jane Austen, the Bronte sisters, Agatha Christie, they all started from zero. Some of them weren't even free to write what they wanted. Virginia Woolf once said, Mrs. Dalloway said she would buy the flowers herself. Our fate and growth are in our own hands. Don't let men invalidate us, then turn around and do it to ourselves. We, as women, must live for ourselves. At the same time, in the hospital where Daniel Carter worked, after completing 2 surgeries back-to-back, a nurse approached him. Jenny was insisting on seeing him. Dragging his exhausted body, Daniel reluctantly made his way to her room. The neurology team had already informed him Jenny didn't have a concussion. She was medically cleared to go home and be monitored there. But she refused to leave. Luckily, there was a spare bed in the neurology ward, and because she had connections to Daniel Carter, they hadn't forced her to discharge yet. Daniel stood at the door, looking at Jenny lying on the bed. For some reason, an overwhelming fatigue swept over him. How long do you plan to keep this up? He asked with a frown. If you're fine, then just go home. Jenny pouted. I'll leave once your girlfriend apologizes to me. Daniel walked over and sat at the edge of the bed. You called her grandmother a dried-up hag who should have died already. Why should Emily be the one apologizing to you? Jenny put on an innocent look. I was just telling the truth. She was using her grandmother to tie you down. My mom cooked for you for years, you used to eat at our place. Doesn't that mean you should take care of me too? Daniel scratched his head, visibly annoyed. If Aunt Chu were sick, I'd take care of her too. Even if it wasn't Emily, if it were any patient, I'd still perform surgery. Jenny reached out, trying to hold his hand. But Daniel, what does Emily have that I don't? She's plain looking, has no figure, and barely an education. You're a lead surgeon now. She's just a basic admin staffer, how could she possibly be good enough for you? Daniel gave her a cold stare. And who do you think is good enough for me? Jenny's eyes lit up with hope. Look at me. We grew up together. We're meant to be. Daniel gave a bitter laugh. And that's why you kept scheming. Purposely dragging me to South Korea for eyelid surgery. Exactly when Emily's grandmother needed surgery? Jenny muttered, well, you agreed to go with me. It's not like I dragged you there. Daniel Carter closed his eyes in regret, overwhelmed by guilt. He had once assessed Emily's grandmother's condition as not immediately life-threatening, believing a short delay wouldn't matter. As a doctor, he should have anticipated the risk of sudden complications. But he didn't. Instead, he chose to fly to South Korea for eyelid surgery with Jenny. Back home now, Daniel stared at the empty apartment. For the first time, it felt unbearably large. When they had first moved in, Emily was so excited about decorating, dreaming of a future where they'd one day buy their own home. They saved every dollar, slowly building a down payment. Until Emily's grandmother fell ill. Back then, Daniel had secretly wondered if Emily was using her grandmother's illness as an excuse to pressure him into marriage. After all, they were both almost 30, and last New Year, his mom had started hinting about settling down. But Emily never did that. And that was exactly what he had loved most about her. She was thoughtful, mature, and always respectful of boundaries. Never once had she made him uncomfortable. But then Jenny came along, and shattered it all. Daniel's mother had raised him alone. Always busy, out early, home late. Their neighbor across the hall, Aunt Chu, often brought Daniel meals out of sympathy. And because of that kindness, Daniel's mom always reminded him to repay her someday. That's how he started paying more attention to Jenny. When Aunt Chu said Jenny had come to the city for work, he helped her find housing, fix plumbing, change light bulbs. No matter how tired he was, if Jenny needed help, he'd show up. Because she was a young woman living alone, and calling a repairman meant having someone around. Daniel had assumed Emily would understand. He thought she wouldn't fuss over such things. But he hadn't expected Jenny to use that so-called favor of a meal to slowly test his boundaries, pushing him bit by bit. Then another message from Jenny came in. Daniel, Emily's almost 30. She'll probably have a hard time getting pregnant. Why tie yourself to someone like that? Besides, the way she left so easily. She's probably already seeing someone else. You're such a great guy. How could she just walk away from you? Daniel stared at the message, frowning, then took a screenshot. He created a new group chat with 4 people. He sent the screenshot and wrote coldly. Take a look at what kind of person she really is behind the scenes. Meanwhile, I was fully immersed in preparing for the sci-fi novel competition. I read the submission requirements carefully, took a deep breath, and began drafting my outline. When I finished the first 10,000 words, I brought the manuscript to team lead Nancy Zhang, hoping she could give me some feedback. She read every page seriously, then looked up at me, eyes full of thought. You really are a Southern girl, your writing is soft, emotional, and nuanced, Nancy Zhang said thoughtfully. And, you've been hurt in love before, haven't you? It shows in every line. I blushed. Is it that obvious? Nancy laughed. Your protagonist goes through such heartbreak and doesn't even think about getting revenge on the guy? Definitely a girl from the South. I blinked. What if she were from the North? Nancy burst out laughing. Then she would have smacked the guy in the head already. We both laughed out loud. Your restraint comes through so well. Keep writing boldly. Sometimes you have to break things down to build again. Pain can become fuel, it might just be what opens the door to your future. She patted my shoulder, her encouragement genuine and warm. I hugged my tablet tightly. My determination had finally taken shape. The apartment complex at night was quiet. Up here in the north, there weren't many late-night activities like back in the south. Neon lights only lit up a few scattered pockets of the city. I lowered my head and wrote with full focus, pouring years of bottled-up emotion into every word. My inspiration flowed like a rising spring. The character in my story was coming alive. Her own voice, her own journey, her own strength. After submitting my manuscript for the competition, Nancy suggested we all go out together. We can't stay cooped up in the office all the time, she said. I'll even introduce you to a few northern guys, change of flavor, maybe? She winked playfully. The mountains up north are different from the ones in the south, she added. Lots of good spots for hiking and camping. Spring here came and went quickly. Just a few days ago it was still cold. But overnight, it had turned surprisingly warm. The trees on the mountains were lush and green, their wide canopies shading the whole sky. This is my little brother, or, actually, my cousin, Nancy said, pulling over a tall guy and grinning. His name's Nick Lee. I was startled. I thought she'd been joking about setting me up. But apparently not. Nick Lee was nothing like Daniel Carter. He was tall and broad-shouldered. He wore glasses too. But his features were well-defined and his vibe was calm and reliable. My cousin works at an architecture design institute, Nancy explained. He's in a creative field too, just like you. You two might have a lot to talk about. And just like that, Nancy turned to chat with someone else, leaving me awkwardly alone with Nick. I stood frozen, my face burning. Nick scratched his head and chuckled. That's my cousin for you. Don't take it personally. She told me a lot about you, Nick Lee said. Said you're talented, gentle, the kind of girl people can't help but care about. My cheeks flushed bright red, lips pressed tightly together. All I could think was, Northeastern women really don't leave anyone a way out. Nick casually picked up my backpack. Let's go for a walk. My cousin said you've been exhausted lately. Get some fresh air on the trail, it'll help. I shyly reached out to take the bag back, but he sidestepped. Come on, wearing your bag on one shoulder might seem fine at first. But after a while, it'll start to ache. Carrying bags is a guy's job anyway. Just walk slow, watch your step. I looked at him, momentarily dazed. It felt like I was surrounded by a warm breeze. When I was with Daniel Carter, nothing I did ever seemed enough. He always told me I had to be independent, not clingy. That we had to fight side by side. It had been so long since anyone simply took care of me. Though Nick was tall and broad, he walked slowly, matching my pace the entire way. He told me stories about strange clients at the architecture firm. Afraid I wouldn't understand the technical stuff. He skipped jargon and used easy-to-understand examples. Walking beside him, I felt relaxed for the first time in forever. No pressure, no judgment, just mutual respect. A feeling I'd never truly experienced. After the walk, Nick said softly, "If there's ever anything you want, just say so. No need to hold back." Looking at the lively group of people laughing around me, I suddenly didn't feel so alone. I grew up with my grandmother in a tiny village, without any childhood friends. My parents only came home during the holidays. Their love was distant, faint. Even when I was with Daniel Carter, I always felt lonely. Watching him run around for Jenny, I often felt left out. But I thought I was just being overly sensitive. Now I realized, I deserve to be cared for. I deserve to be loved. That night, Nick walked me back to my place. At the door, he hesitated and asked, "Can I add you on WeChat?" I paused for a second, then nodded. Meanwhile, Daniel Carter sat in his office, staring blankly. A patient's family had filed a formal complaint accusing him of taking a bribe. He racked his brain, but couldn't recall ever accepting money from anyone. Despite his pride and arrogance, he'd always followed medical ethics. He had never taken a bribe. But the patient's family was adamant. The surgery had failed, the patient didn't survive. And now they were threatening legal action, claiming they had paid him but gotten nothing in return. His supervisor notified him. He would need to step down temporarily and cooperate with the investigation. A nurse came by with paperwork and quietly said, "Someone from the patient's family came to your office that day." Daniel frowned. "I wasn't even here that afternoon." The nurse thought for a moment, then added, "But your girlfriend was. A pretty girl, long hair, fair skin. Isn't she your girlfriend?" In that moment, all the blood drained from Daniel's face. It was Jenny. He immediately picked up his phone and called her. The line rang twice before she answered sweetly. "Hi, Daniel." Her voice was airy and carefree, with loud music and a noisy crowd behind her. "I did stop by your office," Jenny said. Daniel Carter shot to his feet, furious. "You what?" Jenny hesitated for a moment. "What's the big deal?" "Someone came looking for you, I just left a pair of socks." Why are you being so petty? Daniel's whole body trembled with rage, his jaw clenched. You took money from them, right there in my office, didn't you? Jenny went quiet for a second, then replied nonchalantly. So what if I did? It was just $50,000. You're their surgeon, right? Shouldn't you be worth more? Daniel's heart clenched so tight he nearly collapsed. Years of building his reputation, his ethics, all crushed in an instant by Jenny's recklessness. She had accepted money right inside his office. Of course the patient's family thought they were working together. If he didn't turn her in, his entire career would be over. But if he did, what about Aunt Chu? What would happen to her? Daniel held his head in his hands. What should he do? Jenny was still young. Should her whole life be ruined because of this? But if he didn't act, then his life would be ruined. After a long silence, he made his decision. The police arrested Jenny at a nightclub. She looked dazed, clueless about what was happening. Meanwhile, I was on my 5th date with Nick Lee when I got a call from the sci-fi novel competition organizers. You've won first place. In that moment, it felt like a massive weight lifted off my shoulders. I grabbed Nick's hand and shouted in joy. A real author now, huh? When you get rich, don't forget us little people, he teased. I threw my arms around him. Thank you. Thank you and everyone who believed in me. At long last, I had stepped into my own light, on my own terms. 1 year later, Nick and I registered our marriage. As we walked out of the civil office, my phone rang. It was Daniel Carter. He was crying, begging me to come back. Or at least tell him where I was, so he could find me. But I didn't need him anymore. I answered calmly. Daniel, leaving you was the best decision I've ever made. You owe me a life. Let's never see each other again. He sobbed uncontrollably on the other end of the line. Emily, because of Jenny I lost my medical license. She's in prison now. All those years we were together. Can't you give me one chance to make things right? I tightened my grip on Nick's hand and held my head high. Daniel, the past should stay in the past. An ex is best left dead in your memory. I hung up. But I could still hear his broken cries in my mind. Nick smiled, gently tugging my hand. Famous author Emily's got such strong vibes now. I laughed. Let's celebrate tonight, with hot pot. Nick leaned in and kissed my forehead. Sounds perfect. I turned and walked forward, leaving behind a love that once hurt me deeply, and stepping into a future that was bright and full of promise.